of our newly revamped MPIO network for Tennis New South Wales. It's really exciting that we are able to start this off again. And thank you all for, I guess, volunteering your time and taking time out of your busy days to jump onto this session. For those of you who don't know me, as an introduction, I'm Matt Allen. I'm the Head of Policy Integrity Risk here at Tennis New South Wales. So obviously there's a nice link in there with MPIOs in Clubland and the role that MPIOs play in Clubland. So before I kick off the session and the info within the session, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the various lands on which we're joining the call today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So what I want to kind of cover in this session, which is, as I said, the first of hopefully many of these MPIO network sessions, is a few key things. Firstly, I just want to kind of introduce the network. I know some of you might have been in the previous iteration, which we did. It kind of died and fell away in COVID, and that was with the person in the role previous to me. But I guess I just wanted to kind of talk a bit about what I see this group being and how it might be able to help you. Secondly, I just want to kind of touch on what the role of an MPIO actually is. And the reason that I want to do that is because we've got a mix of people in this group that have shown interest in being in this group. Some of you are MPIOs already, so some of this information you hopefully will know already. But some of the other people that have registered interest are potentially interested in becoming an MPIO. So I really just wanted to kind of give a high level around what the role of an MPIO is, and then off the back of that, what training is available for MPIOs. There is a formal accreditation that you can obtain as an MPIO. Some of you may have already done that. Some of you may not be aware. So I guess this session is very much just kind of an introductory first port of call session, and then hopefully we can build from there. Unfortunately, Tiana's not actually available to be with us tonight now, so we'll hold over those reflections of an MPIO to a later session, but that'll be really valuable, I hope, for you all as well. So in terms of what I want this group to be, this group is really intended to be your group. So I want it to be really interactive. I want you to feel free to ask questions. Really, the intention is to support you as tennis MPIOs and to help you have the skills and resources available to do a really good job in what is a really important role. But also more important than that, and then having the resources, is that I really want you to feel supported in this role. It can seem a little bit daunting and a little bit scary, so I want you to know that you do have the full backing of us here at Tennis New South Wales, and me in particular. I want you to feel like you know me, you know my face, and therefore if you have any issues that you want to chat through with me or that you may need support in, I want you to be able to feel like you can do that too. And as I said, I do want it to be really collaborative, so I want you to be able to talk to each other, use each other as resources, and to be able to just bounce ideas off each other as this group kind of grows and moves forward. So as I said, please feel free to ask questions. Please feel free to use the raise hand function and just let me know at any point if you have a question, or if I'm moving too quickly, or if there's anything that you might want to know or want to ask. As I said in my email, I'm trying to keep the content of this session to under half an hour, but I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions or have a chat after I've got through the kind of more formal content of the session. So in terms of some of the key things that I want to cover with this network over the next little while, and the intention will be that we have a session probably quarterly, but if there's a huge desire from all of you to have them more frequently, then I'm happy to do that as well. But my intention at the moment is to have around quarterly meetings, and each meeting will cover off on something different. So I guess the next session, as I said, this session is kind of more of an introductory high-level session. The next one's going to be a bit more focused on having those difficult conversations that you might have to have as an MPIO. And then also, I guess, trying to give you an overview of what options exist under our tennis policies and the options that you might want to work with people in your club to implement or follow. The next session is going to be focused on MPIO training, and that's going to be more tennis specific. So again, that'll make more sense when I get to the MPIO training section. But that'll be a really hopefully valuable session for you all. And then I'm keen to dive into some case studies in the 4th session. But if anyone has any feedback at this point about, specific things that you want to see from this session, from this group, or any ideas of topics that you might want covered, please feel free even just to write them in the chat if you don't want to unmute and let me know. But if anyone has any suggestions as well, because as I said, this is your group, so I really want to cater it to be covering the things that you want covered. That's a good. Hopefully, potentially some ideas will come up as we go through the session a little bit more, and we kind of dive into the topics a little bit more. But you've obviously got my email address now, so if something comes up that you feel like would be really valuable for this group to discuss as well, please feel free to shoot that through to me, and we can kind of dive into that in a bit more depth as a group and as a collaborative group. So I guess the next thing I wanted to kind of talk about is the role of an MPIO. MPIO is kind of a bit of a scary title. The notion of being a member protection information officer, which is what MPIO stands for, does kind of give it that sense that, your role is to be the one that protects the members of your club or your organisation. If there's one thing that you take out of this session, it is that, that isn't actually what your role is. Your role is not to be, the security guard or anything like that. Really, a better title would be just a member information officer. So really, what your role as the MPIO is to be that first port of call for someone who might have an issue at the club. It's really, really important, and this is often something that does get a little bit confused about the MPIO role. It's not the role of the MPIO to investigate a complaint. There should be someone, and it might be a group, it might be the club committee, it might be the president, whoever it may be, that is actually the person that investigates the complaints. The MPIO should be a separate person to that. And the reason for that is that ensures that the MPIO can remain impartial for anyone that wants to come and have a chat to them. And then they're not, involved or tainted in any way in the investigation process. So if I use Tennis New South Wales as an example, because I'm the person that's involved in investigating potential breaches of the tennis policies, I'm not the MPIO for Tennis New South Wales. Tiana is the MPIO for Tennis New South Wales. So it's really that split role. So again, to really try and give you some comfort if you are thinking about becoming an MPIO and you're not one already, it's not your role to investigate complaints. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to solve anything. It's just really about, clarifying those basic points of concern, presenting people with the options to resolve an issue that they might be having within your club. And even, potentially that might be just encouraging them to have an informal conversation with another person if that is an appropriate avenue. Probably the only caveat on that is that if child safety concerns are raised with you as an MPIO, our expectation would be that you touch base with us straight away, and that being Tennis New South Wales or the Tennis Australia integrity team. So child safety issues are one where we would ask you to come to us, but otherwise your role is really just to provide information and support, really focused on explaining the complaint process and the options available. So as an MPIO, really, what's the most important thing for you to know is just have an understanding of what those options are that are available to someone who might have an issue, and I guess be able to talk to those options and I guess work through them with a person and I guess continue to be a support for them throughout the process. Again, you don't encourage people to make complaints. It's not your role to make complaints on behalf of people, and it's not your role to mediate disputes. We understand, and an MPIO is a role that exists across every sport, not just tennis, and the official bodies that kind of provide the MPIO training understand that you're not going to be experts in this field, so there is no expectation that you have that expert level of training that someone like myself has around investigating complaints and resolving disputes in that way. Does that kind of make sense? Are there any questions at that point around the role of an MPIO and the distinction between the person or body that investigates complaints versus an MPIO? Great. I guess as I said, just the key takeaway around that is that the MPIO title is a little bit misleading, and really if you think of yourself as an information officer or a support officer, that's a much better way to look at it. So in terms of, I guess, then, what are the key contacts? Who should you come to, or who can you come to for support? And who can you direct people to come to for support? I guess they're the really key ones. So that MPIO .nsw at tennis email address is monitored by myself and Tiana. So we're able to really provide you some really targeted support in terms of any issues that you might come across in your role as an MPIO. Obviously, Tennis Australia also has an integrity unit. The Tennis Australia integrity unit is full of a group of really highly trained and specialised individuals around complaint management and complaint handling. So they're really in a great place to provide you that support as well if you don't know where to refer someone. So I guess the point behind showing you these contacts is firstly so that you know who to come to for support, but then I guess too that you have these resources available to you to pass on to people who might have issues or questions within your club and might come to you as their MPIO. So yeah, I guess, yeah, definitely that's the port of call. Please feel free to reach out to me at any point in time. I'm definitely happy to support. I want to support. It's what my job is, to support you all in your role and to feel comfortable in your role. Probably the key one to pull out there too is that 1-800-11-SAFE number. That's a 24-hour support service or incident reporting service, and you can remain anonymous through that service. So some people who come to you may feel much more comfortable making a report if they know that they can remain anonymous. So that's a really good one to have as well, and that's monitored by the Tennis Australia Integrity Unit. So I guess those options are really important for you to understand and to know. And yeah, obviously, please feel free to utilise them and to reach out to us at any point if you need that level of support. I guess the final thing, and I'm doing well to keep to my under half an hour for the content, that I want to touch on is the MPIO training that's available. And again, you may know this already, but for those of you who are considering becoming an MPIO or wanting to understand more about what the MPIO role is, this is the training that's available to you. So this Play by the Rules training actually leads to you being an accredited MPIO. So while some of you might be in the position of an MPIO at your club, you may not have actually undertaken this formal training. So I did just want to make you aware that training is available. You can access it through the link on the slide there. I'll circulate the slides to all the members of the group after the session. So you'll have not only those key contacts that I showed on the last slide, but also, I guess, the direct access to this training. What this training entails is two parts. The first training is an online course, which is run through this Sports Integrity Australia / Play by the Rules online training portal. It does get a little bit confusing. It used to be delivered by Play by the Rules. Play by the Rules has now been essentially taken over by Sports Integrity Australia. So if you're reading things and you see Sports Integrity Australia, MPIO training, or Play by the Rules integrity training, MPIO training, sorry, they're the same thing. It's through the same portal. So yeah, you'll get the same training. You'll be in fact sent to the same training portal, as you can see on the screen there, through both links. But yeah, I guess the intention of this training is to really walk you through some practical scenarios, the way to manage certain conversations, give you an idea of, I guess, what the role of an MPIO is, building on the sort of high-level things that I've touched on already, and to really point you in the right direction of sort of developing those skills and experience in order to be a really successful MPIO within your club. Importantly, there's, as I said, two sections. So the first section is an online session, and the second session is a face-to-face session. So previously, the face-to-face session was delivered by representatives of Play by the Rules or Sports Integrity Australia. What we've actually been able to do at Tennis is we're working directly with Sports Integrity Australia to develop a tennis-specific workshop or session 2 of this MPIO training. So what that means is, and that's what I kind of touched on as a session that I'll deliver down the track. It hasn't actually quite been finalised yet, but I'll actually deliver that training session to you all. So, and what that'll mean is that if you've done the online session and then you come to our workshop where I deliver this part 2 tennis specific training, you'll actually walk out of that with the accreditation for MPIOs. And we think that hopefully that will be really valuable because obviously that will speak specifically to the tennis policies that we have, the application of those tennis policies in some common examples that we see across the tennis landscape. And yeah, I guess will be really much more targeted to tennis than the more general play by the rules training is. So I'm hopeful that that will be really useful for you all. And again, that will give you the accreditation. So definitely encourage you to jump online if you haven't already and do the online session, but hold off on booking the session 2 because we'll do that in a tennis specific way down the track. Are there any questions at that point around the training? Perfect. So yeah, at this point, I was going to ask Tiana to jump on and give her reflections on her role as Tennis New South Wales as MPIO. As I said, unfortunately, she's not available at the moment. So this means that you will definitely get an early mark. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to give you the opportunity to, if there's anything that you wanted to ask or raise or Kat's maybe dropped off or maybe unmuted. You got a question, Kat?
No, I was just going to say thank you everyone for joining in. From a staff point of view out in the field, helping clubs through this area is really difficult because again, and I think Matt, probably you've said it better than I've heard it said since I've been working here, in that the role of the MPIO isn't a threatening one. The difficult part comes, and that's why we have Matt's support and we have the integrity support of the team in Melbourne. Our job as MPIOs is very much to be the information and listening officer, not the investigators and problem solvers. So I think that's really important and a message we need to spread far and wide. The other thing I wanted to add, previously when we had this running, I hadn't been in the position long, but we also, something for thinking about is we talked about sharing these roles. So some of our smaller clubs don't have anyone prepared to step up. And one of the things we were looking to do, Matt, was work towards having a network of MPIOs that your clubs would know, a bit like the association role, I guess, that they could contact that club and they could put you in touch with the MPIO so that, you know, there's that arm's length locally as well to help better qualified resources, activity and usage.
Yeah, definitely. And even if someone was comfortable, you know, potentially working with other sports in the area or other clubs in the area, you could potentially you know, work with the local basketball club or cricket club or whatever it might be to have one person that's comfortable being the MPIO for all of those clubs, and I guess or a couple of people, and I guess sharing that role. And yeah, definitely I would definitely encourage that. And yeah, Kath, I mean, obviously, you know, you're in the field, but if there are people that you know, where you see those opportunities to link clubs together or link individuals together, I would definitely encourage that because, you know, and this is the intention of this group as well, is to create that network of support. So if we can create that network of support in the field as well, definitely encourage it. And I guess all of you on the call potentially have a role to play in that and sharing this information. And there's people at your club that, you know, want to learn more about this, then have them get in touch with me, encourage them to join this group. And that sort of stuff, really try and get that network of information sharing going. That'd be fantastic. And yeah, Kath, I think the call out too around being the information and listening officer is a really good call. I think that's great language to use. I would love nothing more than to be able to change the title of MPIO because it sounds bloody scary. But unfortunately, it applies across every sport, not just tennis. So I don't have that ability, but I am going to start trying to use language that avoids the, you know, the protection element of it because it's not actually really part of your role at all. It's more listening and providing information. Do anyone else have any questions or anything that they wanted to raise or suggest or? All right, no worries. Well,
Matt, sorry,
thanks.
there's one. Is that
Sorry?
Joe?
Oh no, I was just going to say no, but it was very, very interesting to listen to, you know, what we are supposed to be doing and what we're not supposed to be doing. So yeah, the information was good.
Yeah, great. And again, if you need me to, I guess, have this same conversation with people at your club more broadly so that they understand the distinction between that investigatory role that sits potentially with the club committee or the president or whoever it might be versus what an MPIO is, happy to have those conversations with anyone that at the club that needs to be had.
Yep.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
I'd just like to ask a question, and maybe I should already know it. What's the general scope of incidents or issues that an MPIO would be referred to or involved with, aside from child issues? What other things?
Yeah, so the MPIO role does tend to get tied into child safety a little bit, but that's probably not necessarily accurate. It's really a resource for anyone in the club to use. And it's in terms of the scope of complaints, it can be anything really. It can be, I feel like this person is bullying or harassing me, to the more serious, child safety things. I guess that's where the distinction is really important, though, that the MPIO is really just there to listen and to provide options. So if someone comes to you and says, I feel like this person's bullying me, then as an MPIO, your role is to say, okay, so how do we work through and resolve this situation? Are you comfortable having an informal conversation with that person? Or alternatively, you have the option to make a more formal complaint, which can be managed in accordance with our club's policies, or alternatively might be referred to the Tennis Australia Integrity Unit if it's of a more serious nature, if that makes sense. So I guess really it can be anything. There is no limit on the scope of what an MPIO might be spoken to about, but then all the MPIO needs to do is know where to direct that person to go to with that matter, as opposed to necessarily needing to know how to resolve it, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
So yes, in a way, but is it just, that sounds like all behaviour or interactions off court. So anything on court, is that an MPIO? If disciplinary or, what happens? Is it an on-court and off-court role?
No, there's not necessarily a distinction between on-court and off-court. But again, if there was an on-court thing that happened, all that the person would be coming to the MPIO for is to get an understanding of what their options are to resolve it. So the MPIO says, okay, well, we have an on-court disciplinary policy at the club, so go and look at that and then, determine whether you want to make a complaint under that policy or something like that. It's not even really the MPIO's role to refer complaints. It's more about directing the person to know where they need to go in order to make a formal complaint, if that makes sense. Obviously, again, as I said, the only caveat on that is if you're an MPIO and someone raises a child safety concern with you, we ask that gets raised with us, obviously. I hope that answers the question. Great, thanks, Sue. I appreciate the question. It's a good one. All right, if there's no more questions, I might end it there. But as I said, you've obviously got my email address. So firstly, please feel free to reach out to me if you do feel like you need support or you want to have any further conversations offline. That's what I'm here for. And secondly, please feel free to feedback any feedback or suggestions or topics that you want covered or information or questions that you might have. That would be really fantastic for me as well to make this session as useful for you all as possible. And I just, again, reiterate, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on and I guess look forward to working with you and hopefully helping you be the best MPIO as you can be and feel as supported in this role as you can be. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely night. Enjoy the Olympics. See ya.
See you later. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, team.